Lakeland Public Television's Common Ground is brought to you by the Minnesota Arts and Cultural Heritage Fund. Common Ground is funded by the Minnesota Arts and Cultural Heritage Fund and the citizens of Minnesota. Hi, and welcome to Common Ground. I'm your host, Ashley Hall. On this week's episode of Common Ground, Bev Joslyn of Walker creates works based on her own preferences, painting realistic depictions of Minnesota wildlife. Plus, Kevin Matthews takes us start to finish on his pottery process, including his unique glazing style.
Started in clay class in high school. Did some wheel work, did some hand building. Well, I guess I kind of found it relaxing. I enjoyed that part of it. Done some painting and stuff, drawing, but the 3D work is really kind of what I really like to do, whether it's with clay or working with metal or tiles. Went to college. I wanted to be a life flight medic, and I took a pottery class and just ended up doing it all the time, and it's kind of where it kind of grew from there. Found it therapeutic. Have a lot of loss in my life, so it seems like I can kind of bury myself in the studio and kind of work through things, which is kind of nice. I'm centering the clay. Make sure I got the right depth. I like to trim my platters so that they can hang on the wall. People give them a choice of whether they want to use it as a functional piece of pottery or if they want it for a piece of art. So I went to Normandale Community College. That was a 2-year college. Got my 2-year degree there. I was a firefighter for almost 8 years. Worked on an ambulance. I had this desire to finish college, so I decided to move up to Bemidji to get an environmental studies degree. Kind of the same thing happened there. I was working on that degree and ended up in the studio all the time. Before all said and done, I had a 4-year art degree and a minor in environmental studies. Right now I'm just making sure that the wall is even. It's on the platters, they like to, when you lay them down, they like to bow out if they're just some little flaws. They're kind of sensitive when you do it. Some people like to do a platter that has a real wide bottom and then they just do little sides on it. I like to have more of a form to them. So my platters have a narrower foot on them and not so much of a flat bottom. So it's kind of taste. It's I guess it's probably more my personal taste than anything. I think it looks more elegant. I pay attention to detail a lot because I think that if people are going to buy this for a piece of art, it should have that extra effort to kind of complete it and clean it up and that kind of thing. I think that because I had already worked I had a corporate job for a while, and as a firefighter, and I'd already worked some jobs that, even though I like working, I didn't find joy in the work. And so I found joy in doing this. It seems like in some of your jobs you're working for somebody above you, and now I'm working for people that want to enjoy what I do, I guess I find more peace in that. Kind of the limitation with platters is getting them in the bisque kiln. Once they're dry, they can't be wider than, on mine anyways, 22 inches. Then you lose about an inch over a foot through drying and firing. Now, kind of see that this is starting to get this nice curvage to it, you know, more of a, what I call elegant look. I think distinctively with my work, I think my people gravitate towards my platter work a lot because I really enjoy what I can do with them. They give me so much more options to use them kind of as a canvas. I guess I look at them as a canvas, and I can do different things in them. Or it seems like a vertical vase, you know, it seems like it limits you. You're kind of working on a surface that's up and down. And I'll just take and trim a little bit of this out so you get a nice line through here and a narrower foot. It sits on a centerpiece on a table, has some form to it, gives off some light on your table. I offer a service. It's paint your own pottery, and that's pre-made molded items. Anything, plates, bowls, cups, soup cups, dogs, cats, dinosaurs, horses, turtles, pretty much any kind of animal and functional wear I have. What that entails is you're painting, but you're not using paint. You're using an underglaze, colored underglaze, and I have several different colors. And then they can draw their designs if they're making special gifts. A Cub Scout troop came in and they did for a merit badge. I've had homeschoolers come in, kind of to learn a different part of art that they aren't exposed to. Done birthday parties and work parties, wheel lessons. I don't so much set up classes for wheel training, but I do a lot of either one-on-one or one-on-two, so it's more personalized. I don't rent out studio space because I'm kind of limited. There's kind of just there's a lot of different things going on in here. So it's just kind of what fits the space, what fits my personality, I guess. I like to teach. I think in my ideal world, I would actually like to build a bigger facility that's more community orientated. That's what I would like to do. Something where I can offer a lot of different classes and offer different types of studio packages and things like that. You know, if that were ever to happen, that'd be cool. That's like my ultimate goal. I haven't made anything bulbous in a while. There was one year all I did was made bulbous forms. I just wanted to see how far I could get it out each time without making it tall. That's a cool thing about college. You get a chance to do a bunch of stuff you probably wouldn't do in the studio. You're taking more chances, you know? I want to make pots that are as tall as I am. I want to stand on a ladder and make a pot because it's just that high. And I would say that for me, my favorite part of the whole process is actually glazing. I prefer glazing than throwing. It's probably odd for most to hear that out of a professional potter. As a general rule, I like to get it looking like melted ice cream. Some I run a little thinner, some of the glazes I go a little thicker. I use this pan so I can do bigger pieces. I put a wax on the bottom and then dip them in there. Glaze. The wax that goes on the bottom is just canning wax that you would use to can vegetables. I also use the same wax for designing, which you'll see later. The wax resists the glaze, so that I don't have to wipe so much glaze off the foot so it doesn't stick to the shelf when I put it in the kiln. I'm always in the store looking at what colors are in, shapes. It's kind of an obsession to pick up pottery and and look at it, whether it's the stamped out stuff from China or stuff that's handmade. I'm not particular. I'll go into a restaurant and look under the plate I'm eating off of and check out the cup I'm drinking out of. And I think when I run into the stuff that really intrigues me, I'm hoping that somehow my visual memory will just store it and then kind of make its own creation out of it sometime down the road. I normally don't take sketches or pictures of stuff. Now this is a red iron oxide base glaze called Tomoko. There's several variations of it. The one I'm using is more of the traditional one. They used a different variation of this one up at Bemidji State. You can see what the wax does. Yeah, I make all my glazes from powders. The only store-bought glazes I use are on the electric firing and low range firing for paint your own pottery. The high firing, I mix all my own glazes. So I'm going to do a change in my base glaze to what's called a Shino or a carbon trap. And it has different characteristics. It's not a runny fluid glaze. It's more of a stable kind of glaze, yes. Now I'm going to do the design work. Ones with the Tomoko on them. On the Shino ones, I'm going to do more of a pouring design. If I use a wax design on these, the wax doesn't change the color of the glaze. If I use a wax design on that one, it leaves a mark where the wax is, which is kind of cool if that's the effect you want, but I want to keep away from the wax marks on those ones this time. Alright, let's make some designs. I just got a regular hairbrush paintbrush. You can see the wax goes right on top of the glaze. Good thing about the wax, see, if you mess up the design, you can get it off and start over again, or if you get little trails. Yeah, the wax is for a controlled line. So when I put on the next color, so if I want to use multiple colors for the overglaze, so I can put one color here, one color here, and one color here, three different colors. Now that just looks like a mess. But when I do the colors, you get more of a different flow on each one of them. I try to concentrate on flow. I like things to move through normally, or to have some kind of action going on. So this will be my last one I put wax on. And we'll go to glazing. Alright, so I'm gonna put the middle glaze on first. Sometimes I like to look on the glaze to see if I see something. And I'll actually kind of follow some of the glaze will leave little trails and little things. And sometimes I'll even make my designs based on what the glaze is doing. This is the fancy dancy pour method. Very complicated. I'll use the wax as my you can see what the wax does. Was able to keep for the most part, little bonuses there. Well, the nice thing about this is the middle one is the hardest. The end ones are easier. Earlier when I was throwing, I was talking about how I like the elegance of that. There's the other reason is I like something to hold on to when I do this glazing method. So I actually got this measured to my hand. It's gonna be somewhere between a tan and a brown. Then on one side I'll have red and on the other side I'll have blue. So in an abstract world, the red I'm putting on now would represent probably like a night sky, sunset where it gets really kind of a reddy orange. This would be more of the meadow and then the water. You got sun, so basically you got the sunset, a meadow, and then the water in front. I love glazing. Love making designs, looking at the pieces. I mean, this one's kind of a setup one. I knew what I wanted to do. So this will be the last color for both of them. I got 7 studio glazes, so all my glazing is a variation of 7 different glazes. I have some people that buy it and they tell me right off the bat all they're gonna do is put it in their hutch or hang it on the wall or whatever they're gonna do with it. And I have some people that are like, well, how do I stick it in the oven? You know, so it goes both ways. I would say that it's a mix, a very good mix. I don't know what the full mix is. I have family members that won't use it. And I'm like, just use it. If it breaks, I'll get you another one. And they just, oh, we can't use it. And that's that. Voila. So this is called a car kiln. It was built here right on site by Donovan Palmquist on the cities. And it's built of soft brick and hard brick. And it's gas fed, natural gas. And the reason it's called a car kiln is because it's on wheels. Nice. The reds are a little darker. This is one of the ones we glazed in the studio the other day. So that's what it turns out with after the wax design and the different glazes. This kiln takes about 21 hours from the time I start it until the time it's done. That's kind of the neat thing about opening the kiln is seeing all the different oddities. See, on this side of the kiln, this red worked really nice, and on that side it got a little darker. So every time I open the kiln, it's like Christmas. Never know what you're gonna get.
My name is Bev Joslyn, and I'm a wildlife artist, and I live in Walker, Minnesota. I've always drawn or painted things. I started when I was young, just pencil drawing, and worked my way up to what I do today. I look at creation, and I see the beautiful things in creation, and I want to replicate them on canvas. A lot of people can't see this kind of thing in their situations in their lives, and yet there's beauty out there that I would really like people to know is there. The woods, the animals, and so I try to make it as realistic as possible, and I do a lot of detail in my work, and sometimes I hide things in my work so that people can really examine it and enjoy it. I work on it a long time. I started out with just the basics of putting paint on canvas where I have my sketch painted or drawn in, and then I'll start working on it, and it just seems to get more detailed and more detailed, and I keep working on it until I feel it looks realistic. Immediately, if I see a photo, I'll know I want to paint it. Or if I'm driving down the highway and I see something that I want to paint, then I'll keep it in my mind, and later on I'll paint it. For instance, the 5 Wolves is one of my paintings that I was driving back from Cook one evening, and it was just getting dusk, and I saw all the silhouette of the trees, and I thought, there's got to be wolves in there somewhere. So I painted that. I remembered what the sky looked like, and I just painted it. Like, I've got one painting out that's called Indian Camp, and it's got a lot of little things hidden in there, like the Indians are just coming back from hunting all day and they don't have anything. But in the background there's a deer, and in the foreground there's a beaver swimming in the water. And then at the camp, the women are there with the campfire, and they're working on things. They've got the hides stretched out and everything, so you have to really look at some of these. That painting is one of my favorites. Today I am working on a cougar, Mr. Cougar. And I like to do the faces first, because when I do that, then they have like a personality, and I can talk with them and you know, finish the body. But the face, the eyes, that's the most important thing to me. And they have to pop out at me and talk to me so that I can keep going with the painting. But I get really excited when I get the face pretty much, you know, where you can see what it is and everything. I start out with just doing an outline of where I want the cougar to be, in what pose, and then get the rocks at the slant I want them to be in. And then I just fill the whole thing with just neutral paints for the subject, and then start working on my detail. The cougar is a mount that my girlfriend has down in New Mexico, and I've always loved the cougar and thought it would be really beautiful in a painting. So I went down there and I took a bunch of pictures of it, and it's been a couple years, but I finally got to it. I've got a lot of things in my mind that I want to paint, but it seems like I don't have time to do everything I have in my mind. Wherever I travel, I see things that I want to paint. I've painted Florida scenes, painted desert scenes, New Mexico scenes, Minnesota scenes. It seems like Minnesota wildlife is my favorite, and I think it's just because I love the wildlife. I love the area and the trees and the lakes. A lot of times I'll paint things that I want to put on my walls. So, like Two Wolves is a painting that I just wanted to have a picture of two great big wolves in my living room. So I painted two wolves. And that's where a lot of this comes from, is I paint what I like, what I want in my house. And then other people like it too. When you see a couple of deer running across the road, you can't really study them. But you look at the white-tailed buck, and you can just look at all his legs and his ears and everything, and see features that you wouldn't see when you're just at a glance watching one run by. A lot of people aren't going to see these beautiful things, and we don't know how much longer they're going to be around. Like the cougar, how many people see a cougar? I did this little pelican in Florida as I was sitting on the beach. I sketched him out. My sister has a cat called Maya, so I surprised her with a pencil of her sitting on a bunch of books from around the world. They're world travelers. And that was also very, very hard with colored pencil. The bugling elk I painted when I was living in New Mexico, northern New Mexico, where there are a lot of elk. And that just inspired me to paint sunrise moose. That was one up by International Falls. I was also making an environmental statement with swamp moose. In the foreground, there's a beer can floating in the water. And I wanted people to see that so that they would remember to pick up their trash when they're in the woods. The Chippewa National Forest hired me to paint axes for them, paint on the axe heads, and they wanted eagles most of the time. They would give the axe to those who were retiring. And this axe head, the wood grain on the handle was very conducive to the rest of the painting, so I highlighted the wood grain One of their fisheries men was retiring, and so they requested a walleye. So I did a walleye axe head. Sometimes when I start a picture, I think, I can't do this. This is impossible. But then I do it. I think anybody can do it if they have the desire to do it. One time one judge told me that paint what you love, paint what's in your heart. If you just paint other things, it's not going to come out as nice. So I would say paint what you want to paint, and your technique's going to be different from anybody else's because somebody's not telling you how to do it. But everybody's got their own technique and their own way of doing things.
Thank you so much for joining us. We hope that you enjoyed the show, and we look forward to seeing you next week right here on Common Ground. If you have a segment idea for Common Ground pertaining to North Central Minnesota, contact us at legacy@lptv.org or call us at 218-333-3022. To view this episode or any Common Ground segment, visit us at lptv.org/Common Ground. Individual segments or copies of Common Ground, please call 218-333-3020. Common Ground is funded by the Minnesota Arts and Cultural Heritage Fund with money from the vote of the people of Minnesota on November 4th, 2008. If you enjoyed this segment of Lakeland Public Television's Common Ground, consider making a contribution at lptv.org.